was with these two gentlemen way before the polls and the results. Elkanah, thank you for coming back. Elkanah Mugaka is our advocate of the High Court constitutional lawyer, right?
Yes.
So this is way up your street.
Yes.
Tony Kisaka, thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you.
I want to find out why this is interesting to you. Elkanah, we were in the trenches with you. So let me start with Tony. Let's find out his take. A cabinet has been named.
Yes, it is.
What was your first reaction to it?
Actually, interestingly enough, I was really waiting to see what names will come out. And the funny thing is that most of the country was waiting to see, first and foremost, whether the promises that were made pre-elections were going to be, considered. And so finding, like Musalia's position, Wetangula's position, these are things that they had already envisioned and had hoped for or had asked for before elections. So seeing them getting those particular seats or particular positions shows that, as far as, the president is concerned, he believes that, his men and women actually delivered. Okay. So that was the first aspect. And then now from there, we now go into, okay, from the people who've been named, and I've not really gone in depth because I'm still trying to understand who these people are, some of them, because some of them, we're looking at them for the first time.
Don't worry, we are all trying to understand what just happened there. Elkanah, what was your first reaction?
Loyalty rode the day, where people might have been waking up hoping for meritocracy or some form of division between hustlers and those who are loyal to the president gave an emphatic answer. Those who were in the trenches with him, through thick and thin, those who walked away from Azimio, all championing his name, even though they fell on the proverbial sword while they were running through the campaigns trying to fight for him, he has shown that he is going to stand by his men and his women.
Are you essentially happy with what you saw? Do you feel enthused that, okay, this cabinet might just get it together for the country?
That is a two-sided coin in its entirety, because when you give loyalty more credence than meritocracy, then you start giving space for efficiency is given up. While we want the whole country to succeed, you find that the president's pick might put him in a position down the line, while he has given his loyalists posts, he will be dragging along his government by his own coattails if these people are not able to perform. For example, you would find that our security challenges at present, mostly coming up from the northeastern region of the country, you would have assumed someone like Duale would be the best to sit in the docket for interior. That is not the case. When you look at the fact that devolution has not been given its day, and these responsibilities have been instead given to the deputy president, you start to wonder, is it that we have been given a cabinet of politicians who will politic, or is it that they will deliver? Because we do also have to question loyalty versus the qualifications on these people. Are they the best to come to pass? But they have also not passed the parliamentary vote already.
That's going
so
to be
they still have one hurdle to go through before they are looked over again.
Tony, which gaps were screaming at you?
Actually, interesting enough, I will deviate from what Ellie is talking about when you talk about Duale, because look at where he's coming from, right? The region he's coming from. Yes, there has been quite a bit of insecurity, but then where's the insecurity coming from? It's coming from across the border. Now, the moment you talk about across the border, right, that now allows us to have the army, the KDF, come into play, because they cannot operate they're not allowed to operate within the country unless special circumstances. So from a security perspective, giving him defense probably will be that, you come from this area, you understand the issues that are there. What the biggest problem we have is proliferation of, arms and all that, and most of these guys you're talking about, especially Al-Shabaab and all that, they're coming from outside the country. So Now you're being given a docket and being told now you have a docket where you have a connection to the defense forces that are supposed to operate outside of our borders. Think about what's happening in Somalia. So with that, I think that probably might be the right decision. As for Kithure, looking at where he came from, where initially people expected him to have the DP's position, and being given such a docket, essentially, when you look at his credentials, and then also, it could also be a way of just telling him, you know what, placating him and saying, we know what you wanted, we were not able to give you that, but then we're going to give you the interior docket as well.
That's the kind of lobbying and the kind of horse trading which now is opening up gaps. And I think Elkanah is talking about that meritocracy as opposed to loyalty. I don't even know that him sitting in interior is a very good picture. What do you think, Elkanah?
I think it's too soon to tell. They may be the most qualified cabinet we've had to date, but I think this government is coming in to resolve socio-economic problems. They spoke to the heart of the Mwananchi at the base level, Mama Mboga and Boda Boda Rider, who had no business during the pandemic, who are still, the pandemic just ended last year in October as far as the curfews are involved. So these are the people they spoke to. And if the president believes that the cabinet he has selected is going to function for these people in terms of agriculture with Mithika there, in terms of education, because he has already threatened to take down CBC, in terms of, because energy is also a very big issue. These are the three he needs to tackle head on. But we are on day 14, is it? Out of 86 days, out of his 100 days. So if we are going to judge him on just the cabinet appointments, we will not be giving him a fair shot of it.
Okay. Tony, you are looking at promises and what we are seeing so far. Are you good with the promises regarding cabinet?
In terms of promises, and I remember sharing this with a couple of people and saying, when I saw what the lineup was, and I said, I don't think he's done yet. I don't think he's done yet. And I remember one person telling me, I guess we're waiting to see the best, because normally the best is kept for last. So what will come from here on is going to be critical. And essentially, what I really, really want to see is the PSs. Because that's where now we will get to know, because those are the technocrats. Those are really the people who need to be able to now get there and do the job. Because, when you look at it, like now for, is it Owayo who was given ICT? And people are saying, this guy is not an ICT person. Why is he being given ICT? So I went back to look, and he's like, okay, he's a strategist. Okay, he's a strategist, he's in HR. So I would love to know what was on the president's mind when he said, I want to put, in ICT, I want to put a strategist.
I don't think you want to know how the president was thinking. He'll get more shock than satisfaction.
Because as a strategist...
Because now it's about distribution. And that's the only thing Kenyans peg all these appointments on.
Yes, but
where is our person?
As a strategist, because I'm looking at it and saying, this, the president has got a couple of years. It's not open-ended. And I've said it before, right, in this studio, where I said, he now needs to make sure that when he comes after 5 years, he's going to get his second term because of his activities, because of his performance, not because of politics.
But you do not look at it like this cabinet will bring it home for him.
No. It could.
5 years
It could. Because again, just like if you look at any corporate, they bring in people, they interview people, they bring them in and say, okay, now you're on probation. After probation, if they're still happy with you, then you stay. If they're not happy with the probation period, then you leave. I'll expect him to have, to be able to tell the CSs that, what, you're going to be on a performance contract. And, your contract is not with me, but with the people.
But this has not been a shared habit in this country. When somebody is appointed, we say they're in for the long haul. Nobody comes up and says 9 months later, you're not pulling it.
Louis, I think what you are seeing here is a very simple strategy. Kenya is known to leave one election cycle, start another. So who is going to deliver the second round of votes? They have already been selected and put into office today. These cabinet picks are reflective of the people who pushed him into office. And if he was to win a second presidency, he has made a very strong statement at the get-go that the people he has selected, 98% loyalists and only maybe 2% from the previous administration who are not on his side, but who were essentially quiet and not speaking. This is more like a campaign in advance of the campaign.
So it is go to go. There was no go and stop. It's go to go.
The campaigns have officially begun today.
Tony?
I wouldn't say the campaigns have begun, but okay, it really depends on how you look at it. Because I mean, he's almost saying the same thing I'm saying. Because for me, I'm saying the next election he's going to win is not going to be from a politics perspective. It has got to be from a performance perspective.
Do you look at these people and say that's performance coming?
You know, if you actually look at it, if you try and go back, like as I said, if you look at what's happened in ICT, when you look at what's happened even with in the Ministry of Health, you see, you can actually see that he's trying to put people into place for certain reasons, right? For her, you know, especially with the issues we've had in KEMSA and everything, people like Ababu, who people are saying, you know, he should have been given the Foreign Affairs Ministry. You know, he's been played. But if you really look at it, this is a docket he's been in before. And if you really look at it, how much money goes through that docket? Remember, this is where NYS is, right? And other you know, organs as well. If you look at the amount of money that goes through that docket that he's going to be in control of, you have to ask yourself, you know, that question again. Was he really played, or was he put in a place where he really understands what's going on? So that's how I've been looking at this appointment and saying, right, this person has been put here. Why? From you know, in that ICT docket, I was looking at it, okay, the person who's been put here is not an ICT person. So he's a strategic person, he's a HR person, he's a trainer. If you look at his qualifications, he's an economist. So I'm looking at all those and I'm like, okay, so as a strategist, could it be that one of the things that he's going to be told he needs to do is, you know, find out what's going to happen at Konzo?
But this cabinet already, and of course it's too soon, but it's being tagged already. These are loyalists more than they are technocrats, more than they are. What does this say to you? Let's talk about distribution. We always talk about regional distribution. Is this solved now?
He made a promise on his women charter during the campaign that he would give out 50% of cabinet to women. He has not reached that, but he has given 7 to women. So he has tried, even though albeit not as successfully as he should have, to give gender balance. It's due day in court. It is the cabinet with the highest number of women ever. In terms of regional balance, I don't think it is as balanced as it should be, because when you reward loyalists, you tend to not reward those coming from the side of the voting bloc that did not vote for you. So there are parts of Western Kenya that might not be completely accounted for, or the coast region that might not be completely accounted for. But he only had 22 posts to fill. He has filled them to the best of his ability. What we could ask of him is to make sure that if these people are non-performers, he gives the regional blocs that did not support him a chance to come and bring it. The problem you have with loyalists in a cabinet is that no one will come up against the emperor to tell him when he's going against the flow.
So this was very deliberate.
So most of these guys, we know, will toe the government line and avoid any tribulations or discussions where they might get into issues with their boss. But you would need 1 or 2 of these characters who are independent of mind and conscience to guide this cabinet and raise their voices up when they feel like the cabinet decision-making is going wrong. That is not there right now.
Tony, who will question Caesar there? And does Caesar need to be questioned?
Well, if you talk about needs, yes, Caesar needs to be questioned. The question is, who would want to question him?
Do you see anybody there who will question Caesar?
You know, you could also
because you can always looked at the background and you can define the professionals. Okay, then let's do who will question Caesar.
No, it really depends, because if you look at it even in the past, you know, think about people like Moi, who everybody said, you know, you could not stand up to Moi, but Martha did, right? Saitoti did. Mm-hmm. And in fact, especially for Saitoti, nobody expected it. As in, out in public, And at some point, watching, people thought he was going to actually strike the president. If you remember that. And,
yes,
and
we
see,
cannot
so
forget that.
so we really, in that aspect, we really wouldn't be too sure. But one thing I know about this is that, and that was what I would have probably done. Yes, you were loyal to me. You delivered. You expect me to reward you. Well, I'll come and say, Louis, I'm grateful for what you've done. What position do you want? This is the position you want? Okay. I'm giving you the position you want. But remember, you're on a performance contract. So it is for you to maintain your position. If you are not up to par, you cannot blame me because your performance is supposed to be for the public.
But this is not a normal system in Kenya. We don't have a lot of practice in this system where we can call them out after maybe a year, have something like
the problem
midterms
is that
in terms of evaluating.
the president's position, the presidency is at stake. And I believe President Ruto knows that. Now, if his people do not know that, they're going to see a very, very different president. The same way President Kibaki at some point just told his ministers then, I don't want you to keep coming to me. I don't want you to keep running to State House to tell me how good you are and how bad the other person is. You've got a job, do your job. Let the people come and say, we are happy with what's happening, but do not come to me, right? Unless it's something that you're bringing to me, but you have a job, do it. So I anticipate that this is going to be almost similar.
Elkanah, tell me about your side of this, because I'm saying this is not widely the norm. It's not what Kenyans know to evaluate. They see a name and they sit back and wait and see if the president will be happy with his appointee.
I don't think Kenyans are looking to be happy with the appointments. They're looking to see what these appointments will bring out. Whether or not these people perform, because again, the president gave his 100-day promise to handle certain issues here, there, and whatsoever. If those 100 days pass and we look at the charter that he gave us, the manifesto that they gave us, and we see that there are these areas, agriculture, energy, education, and transport or in infrastructure, where he had said he would give certain deliveries by 100 days, then you will start seeing the opposition gaining a voice. I don't think he wants to give the opposition such a big point or a big voice at the early stages of his presidency. So when he chose his cabinet, I'm pretty sure he was aware of the challenges ahead of him. He does have a lot of permanent secretaries and ambassadorial posts. I wish he had saved the ambassadorial posts for some of these gentlemen and ladies.
In the cabinet.
In the cabinet.
Did you hear that statement? Even though he's tucking it under something else.
Let's presume everyone there to be a professional, even though some of them are in cabinet with pending cases in court. He has chosen loyalty over meritocracy. That is plainly clear. But if these people are able to give deliverables within the first 100 days, not even to 100% of the manifesto, just above the 50% threshold, Kenyans might be begrudgingly willing to give them a chance to proceed with the agenda that they're giving. But if the loyalists do not come to the table with something concrete to deliver within the next 100 days, which is just this December, it is not a very long time.
But in our experience, it is very difficult to dislodge a loyalist.
No,
We have actually seen them being pushed around, not even pushed, it's like dominoes, yes. But loyalists are just
they will fall on their own sword
They're redeployed.
eventually.
Mm-hmm. You really need to study the president to be able to have a bit of an understanding of what he's all about and what he's putting into place. One of the things he's kept on saying is that, we are not going to have a handshake because we demand and we desire to have a very strong opposition to check the government. In essence, what he's saying is that, I don't expect to be the one dealing with all these people, right? I have selected them, but then I expect the opposition to put them on toes. So if any of these guys does anything wrong, and that's definitely going to happen, if any of them does anything wrong, you'll find them being called to parliament to explain, you'll find them, they will be put...
Tony, do you actually think the president told them that?
Pardon?
Do you actually think the president told them that when he was giving them office? He was telling them,
No.
I am going to leave you.
He didn't tell them that.
He
didn't tell them that. But then he told the public, we don't want a handshake. We want to make sure that we have a strong opposition to be able to check on the government, right? So he said that to the public. how, by the time you're saying that, what I'm telling you is, I'm hiring these people, but your job is to put them on toes.
And this is clear for them also?
It has to be. I mean,
You're hoping it is.
I hope it is, because he said that
hoping
before,
it is.
he said that before he named the cabinet, right? And the cabinet, with CSs and everything, anytime something happens, what normally goes on? They will be called to Parliament. Okay, you're the CS for this. Explain. Give us this information. Do this. So, in essence, before the president calls you and demands and says, this is happening, chances are Parliament will also be on your case. Right?
But we can see they're really eager to shout. Although at the moment, I don't know what they're shouting about. It's as if they'll jump at anything that is moving and shout about it. Tell me about this juxtapose between deliverables and your position as a loyalist from where the president is sitting. Does this work?
It works for the movement because Kenya Kwanza was the political outfit that championed the idea that political parties can decamp whenever they want to. So in his choice of loyalists, he has secured his government and secured his majority. That was most critical. And we do understand that had to be done fast, so that if any dissenting voices would start rising, it would not be so egregious that you find some of his own Kenya Kwanza people decamping back to opposition to give them back the majority. So having this selection of political appointees mostly gives a lot of security to the incoming government that they will be able to work together with their parliament.
Tony says they're professionals. These politicians are professionals, according to Tony.
Well, they're supposed to be professionals.
Elkanah says some of them should be ambassadors.
You remember when, was it Ngilu, Balala, the first time when they're being put as CSs, that question came up. Are you a politician or a CS? Right? Or a professional? Because the CS position is supposed to be for professionals.
But
they're not
that time we didn't use the word
supposed,
loyalist.
Yes, they're not supposed to be politicians. Okay? Technically, but if you really look at it, I mean, even with in the last government, you saw what was happening. That not only were they, there being politicians, they were actually outright campaigning for some of them, right? So there is what is supposed to be, then there is what really happens. So that we'll have to wait and see.
Gentlemen, do you see, when you say that, I'm wondering about the names people are saying should have been. Are there any names for you that are notable, looking at his campaign team, that actually missed out on his promises? His own team in Kenya Kwanza. Do any names stand out for you?
Well, for me, I would say not really, because it is, for me, looking at the names, the people he's chosen.
Let's look at the coast.
I'm trying to understand.
Let's look at the coast first.
Okay, all right. The coast, essentially, when you talk about Aisha, she's gone through the trenches for him. He had to, say thank you and reward her. Now she's got a cloud hanging over. Is that going to be a problem? Well, that's for the courts to determine, because essentially, if you really look at it, even for Sonko, even for Sakaja, and all these other people, they always say innocent until proven guilty. Now, just because you've got court cases, if I was asked, I would not, I would say, okay, finish your case first, then we can consider something. But
okay,
now,
that's in terms of just giving confidence to these people. As a technicality, you go to court. What do you think of mentioning names that still have pending issues or active cases in court?
First of all, I think when you look at the president, people are looking at him as a new character in this office. He was in the deputy presidency for 10 years. The previous 2 cabinets or 3 cabinets after reshuffling or whatever, he must have had a hand in selecting some of these people with the previous president. So you cannot say that beyond the gentlemanly nature of transactioning between him and his people that they disagreed so much that he could not have any of them. If you're looking at the terms of the people who should have been there with him now, there is Hassan Omar, coming from down from the coast, he should have been given a post somewhere. There's still time, we will see. There's permanent secretary positions, there are ambassadorialships still to be given. There is Igade, although Igade is known to be a very popular employee everywhere he goes.
I'm tempted to say so much about that, but okay, let me hold my...
But if you look at the voting in the August 2022 election, a lot of voters did not turn up. Sincerely, about 8 million did not turn up. And by the time the next election is coming up, there are another 5 million youngsters who are going to be in on the voting block. The president should have spoken to these people by first giving the youth their own ministry, because the youth on their own must be running an entire, they are the ones who voted this government in. Coupling them with sports and everything else seems to have confused what the youth is going to be. So they did not consider the youth completely, and I hope going forward they might try to find a way to do so, encompass the youth agenda to be the youth agenda, because we are the ones driving the country forward. If they are to look at devolution, this country has turned upside down since the constitution passed, and devolution is the main reason for this. Not declaring or announcing a devolution minister also brings a sort of confusion into, are we dealing with the country and the mwananchi, or are we holding these positions for the elite? Devolution and youth, those are the two places I think he should have corrected at the beginning.
Right, so we are immediately looking at potential substitutions at Harambee Stars as he sits in cabinet. What do you think as you're watching? Is this the cabinet that will bring it home, or should we quickly start talking about substitutions? We'll come back after a break.
After a year packed with top-level events in various clubs, we are back to where it all began. The Corporate Masters Golf Series is back at Royal Nairobi Golf Club.
Golf is really growing in Kenya also.
With a touch of luxury, presented by Fumba Town. Make it possible to own your own beachfront property all the way in Zanzibar. Accuracy on every shot you take, made possible by Innovus Group, the leaders in business and financial advisory, assurance and business technology advisory. On October 1st, you can soar with the Eagles, courtesy of Angela Aviatrix Charters. Come, hit the reset button with some scotch made available to you by the Glen Levate from Pano Ricard, Kenya. Register your corporate team to get lucky with the Bet Lion Team Award. Lady golfers, you have more reason to sign up for this event because Godrej, with their mega growth, will be at the cost to help your hair match your long drives. Mega growth calls upon non-golfing ladies to come take part in a golf clinic at the golf range. Come take part in the 7th Corporate Masters event with Kenchik taking care of your breakfast to ensure that we're hitting them long and straight. For those who can't make it, catch all the action on Lookuptv, our official media sponsor. Corporate Masters, represent your brand. This event has been brought to you by
We stopped at substitutions. Now let's find out. Long haul, what are we looking at?
We look at an interesting couple of years. Well, not really years, but then in the next 1 year, we're going to be able to see whether this cabinet will still hold or there might be changes. occasioned by whether it's the court or performance or whatever it's going to be. I do not anticipate that, once it's been put out there that this is the final, right? I'm sure they're going to be watching to see how is the team going to perform, and you never know, we might just see a reshuffle as well, depending on whether there are gaps in any other places. And besides that as well, as we go ahead and with the changing environment, the president might decide to again do something different. So that is also going to be something that we
Elkanah, what do you see in the long haul?
We have a cabinet of politicians and politicians alone, but Kenyans should never doubt that the country will still be able to manage, because there are 3 points of checking government. There is one, parliament, which will question each and every turn these cabinet ministers will go through. And there is also a judiciary, which has to date still proven up to the task. If there is any form of insolence or lack of productivity or deliverables which are against the Wananchi and Wanjiko's plan, the judiciary will check them. So even when the cabinet has been selected as it has, it is being checked by 2 other arms of government. Outside of that, there is an Attorney General who was appointed today, Justin Muturi. Outside of that, there is all the social offices, Kenya Human Rights Commission, there is the Law Society of Kenya. Everyone has a stake in how this cabinet should be run and how this government should be run. So after they have all been vetted tomorrow, because these questions about their cases in court will now be brought up once the parliament has been brought to session. Before they are allowed to enter office, if you have a murder trial going on in Kilifi or wherever you are, if you have a graft case going on somewhere else, everyone will question why you should be allowed to sit in office while these questions are there. And these questions will be put live on TV in front of all Kenyans. I believe that the right cabinet will be selected in the end. So even if they don't all pass, the cream of the crop should be able to.
The gatekeeper now is Parliament, and we need to come back and really talk about what we expect of this Parliament. But now that the duty they have at hand is this one, just as an overview, a very quick statement, do you have confidence this is the Parliament that will help us as a gatekeeper on this one?
I do not think so, because much as we're talking about the CSs, right, how many parliamentarians have court cases? So I cannot come and accuse you of something when I know also have a court case.
Oh. So you already anticipated that. Caesar is looking very clever here. Okay, so what would you say about that? This is not the gatekeeper for this one.
This is going to be, no, I don't think, because, and in any case, if you say Parliament is supposed to be the gatekeeper, it's going to be the opposition, really.
No, just for the entrance, just for them to get into office. They are now the gatekeeper we're looking at.
Exactly, because, you see, if for instance, I belong to, I got into Parliament through, Kenya Kwanza, I don't think this will be the time for me to try and antagonize the president. Mm-hmm. So chances are, early. Yes, so chances are that they will be a bit softer. But I will expect as mere members of Parliament to come hard. But at the same time, as they're coming hard, the question is, who's going to be asking those questions? Right? So if I have a case or I've done something, and the interesting thing is that if you really go back, it goes back to Kenyans. We are the ones who chose them. So we cannot come and say, we don't want this particular CS because they've got a court case. But I voted for you and you have a court case.
Elkanah, is this the gatekeeper? Are you looking towards them to start with this as gatekeepers?
As I said before, His Excellency the President is allowed to make his choices and start his government as he sees fit. He is the one who the Kenyan voters have elected, and the Kenyan voters have given him the mandate and the trust on how to run the country. He is now making the decisions that he promised to them. If he's not living up to those promises, Kenyans will have another chance in a few years to audit and ask him, is this what you thought you would give us? If it is if he agrees and talks to them and explains to them that this is how it is being done, and Kenyans agree, we will have a second term. For now, he has just started office. He has just picked his nominees, not his actual cabinet secretaries. So we give the Parliament a chance to first vet all these people, and we get to know everything there is to know about whatever secrets are lying behind the closet. That will be done as soon as Parliament is sworn in tomorrow.
Let's close with the whole argument, which is typical for all of us Kenyans. It's best said in Kiswahili, tulikuwa tunangoja mtu wetu. What do you tell Kenyans when they look at that as an argument?
Mimi ni Mkenya, so
Wanangoja mtu wako.
any Kenyan ni mtu wetu. Because more,
That's not the right argument.
No, over and above that, based on where I'm at, it's always about performance. Because I have seen places where, consideration of, people, because they doing favors has put people in situations which are tough. It takes me back to remember, I remember my dad who, in fact, I'd always said I wouldn't want to work where my dad works because he will use me as an example. And he will be tough on me, as in, if let's say, if I was to work with, if we were working somewhere, right, and we were working under him, if we did something wrong, you will get a warning letter, I will be fired.
Good. Another opportunity for somebody who love.
Exactly. So that thing of mutu wetu is what has been pulling our country behind. And I remember that. I remember a time when Kenya Airways, did a restructure, and I remember the story of Naikuni. I don't know whether people know it, but Naikuni, they did a restructure. He was the MD. He went home and found his sister and her daughter in the house, and the daughter was crying. Now that's his niece was crying because she'd been fired from KQ, and he said, "Unfortunately, I cannot help at KQ. I'll try and help you somewhere else, but unfortunately at KQ,
that's the job."
Yes.
Mtuetu, Elkanah, which one were you waiting for? Talk to us about days hunger for Mtuetu in this country.
We are a thriving democracy that started essentially Mtuetu, and we have come a long way as we did a campaign based on ideas, and the ideas took the day. There is a government with a cabinet full of loyalists, parliament from all across the divide, county assemblies that are in control of governors from the opposing party. The country is in a state of influx. So Mtuetu might have had its day, but if you saw how the last voter turnout came out, a lot of the incumbents were sent home. A lot of the sons of the waheshimiwas who were coming on the big names were all sent home. Newcomers, people who are in their mid to late 30s, are the ones trouncing people in their 50s with all the financial resources and all the phone numbers and all the names that they had in this country. Mtuetu might be on its way out the door. It might not be completely gone, but it's on its way out the door. Kenya is such a thriving democracy, and after all the countries I've visited, every time I come back home, you get to find a sense of we are progressing each time you come back. If you get onto an aeroplane and leave this country, come back in 6 months, you're not on the same Mombasa road. Yeah. If you go to make a deal with someone in town to handle your government issues, you leave and come back in 2 months, they are not in office. Things are on the move at such a rapid pace for our country that whenever you think of the idea that Mtuetu has not been appointed, remember that the ones who are in office might be delivering just as well, if not better than the Mtuetu, because Mtuetu is going to be there with the entitlement that now that I am here, your community is represented. Whereas someone who is coming from the coast region and working in the roads ministry might be paving the yellow brick road all the way to Kisumu on the opposite side of the country. This is the kind of country we want to see.
Okay. Actually, very quickly, before I don't want to go without saying this, just on the same argument of Mtuetu, looking at Central, this was very critical in the vote. Have they thought of reward? Do you think these are the names people expected? Nyoro and company not there. We've looked at the coast, Hassan Omar is not there. Is there a reward system that is missing out here, just looking at Central, Mount Kenya?
It's not really a reward system, it's a strategy where people expect all these big names. Then you choose people and put them into those positions that people do not have a proper understanding of their background or what they're capable of. And that's why you see, as of now, we still do not have much pressure. In fact, the only place that there was an issue was it Monica Juma? Was it Monica?
Juma?
Yes. Is she the one? No, sorry, it's not Monica. It's not Monica. It's I can't remember who it was. Who's actually Kamba married to
That's a
some.
typical Kenyan problem now.
So she went back home,
Yes.
and it was very low key. Because they said, you do not belong here anymore. You're not, yes, she's Kamba, but, you got married there, so go to that direction, right? So you see now, like in that aspect, how, we don't know what the president was, had determined. Maybe he was saying, okay, I want to show that, my appreciation to the Kamba people. But the Kamba people are saying, no, that lady got married, so she's not part of us. So we feel like, we've been left out. Now, on the other side, you find in now Central itself, when you're giving people, you're giving them people that maybe you've done your homework, you've done your due diligence, so you know what this person is capable of. But then it's not really out there. I remember, like for instance, Susan Owafula, and people are like, who is this person? But I just tried to look at her credentials, and I was very surprised. I was like, okay. And in fact, when I looked at her credentials, I was saying, Ministry of Health, that's a serious docket. But she's actually a professional when it comes to procurement.
But we
and
do
she's
have a
working
history where
hospitals.
people come in with very classy
Exactly.
credentials.
Exactly.
And they're announced in pomp and flair. 6 months later, we're wondering, where did they come from?
So, well, very true. But now, in terms of a track record, she's got that track record. And looking at her credentials, for me, in my mind, what was ringing was KEMSA, because we've always had issues with KEMSA. Scandal after scandal after scandal. And I said, okay, you could look at this two ways. Get that professional who will understand how to be able to fleece KEMSA in a way that, these scandals will not be found, or get that person who's going to come and get rid of all the scandals at KEMSA. I don't know what direction it's going, but I just, for me, that came to mind. And possibly if we look at all of them.
Hope here.
We have
And how does this work out for you when we look at those intrigues we're talking about? Are you at the right ministry? Are you doing the right job? Do you deserve it?
Let's give the cabinet nominees a chance to be vetted. If they survive that grueling vetting process, I think we will have taken them through the kind of education that we need them to understand that when we put you in office and you insist that you are professional, we saw what happened when the IEBC was elected too late. We are not going to entertain a cabinet where someone who should have not had any business touching computers is now being given the ICT dockets to charge the country when he doesn't know how to use a smartphone. We are not going to give someone who has never held a djembe in his life the entire docket of agriculture to try and turn us into a technological agriculture country. This is not going to work. We are who we are because we are professionals, whether it's an advocate in the justice ministry, whether it is economic scientist who is in the interior ministry. Everyone should be put where they're supposed to be, and if they are not able to pass the vetting, they should also have the bravery to have their name withdrawn rather than having scandal after scandal follow them into office, because it will be their president they're putting under that sword.
So let's hope, let's think. Now, just in terms of redress, as the voter, this is still high expectation time, but still at name level. What would you advise Kenyans? Where is their redress? Where does it come from? What can they do apart from wait for these people to start working, talk after?
I will say take care of yourselves. Look at what opportunities might be out there. The president right from get-go has been already, making some declarations, putting out some stuff. So we need to be at a place where we are moving away from politics and seeing, as me, as Tony, am I ensuring that my family has food? Am I ensuring that my children are going to be in school? Am I ensuring that I've got revenue to be, or rather a salary or income that is going to be able to take care of me today and also tomorrow? So essentially, because we'll look at this, we'll talk about all these things, but then at the end of the day, if as a person, if I do not also put my hand to the plow and get to do my bit, it'll all be naught.
Okay. Yes. A closing statement, Elkanah?
The cabinet nominees have been selected. Tomorrow we have the first sitting of parliament and the president will be giving his opening speech. The country is done with the political atmosphere and the campaign period is now over. We are now into the last days of settling into normal business. We ask all Kenyans to now sit together, get back to the work that brought them their daily bread and daily food, get back to what you do for yourselves, and then come back in 6 months and question whether this government is doing the job for you. If it is not, you will now start giving your opposition or your other avenues a voice. Until then, you cannot just bring the government to task on the first week of starting office.
Right. So Parliament is up. We need to come back and discuss the first gatekeeper who's up in Parliament and take it from there, because now every event we have to keep monitoring. So here's the cabinet, as you've said, they need to get it to office. Let's see how they work. Let your cabinet go to work and then start measuring them against promises and measure them against whatever they will commit to in their respective offices. This is Lookuptv. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.